You are now listening to On the Beat Podcast.
And welcome to podcast number 8 of On the Beat Podcast with Lou Maroto and myself, John Riddle. This is podcast number 8, and it is the continuation of Suicide Prevention Month. So last week we had a pretty good interview, I thought,
yep.
with that young lady, Tiffany. And today we have our guest, Ric Jorge. Rick is a retired firefighter from Palm Beach County, Florida, fire rescue. He's been assigned to various trucks and engines for over the past 24-year period that he was involved with Palm Beach County Fire Rescue. He retired in 2017 to pursue his passion in performance training and consulting. And we'll talk about that in depth in a little bit. He's authored chapters in several books, co-authored a book on resiliency, on developing firefighter resilience. And for the past 7 years, Rick worked at a rehab center, counseling center for uniformed personnel struggling with substance abuse and mental health issues. Rick, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. It's wonderful.
Good to have you. Good seeing you again.
Good to be seen.
Before we get going, I would like to thank our sponsors. I'd like to thank Tommy Morrison and Simpatico Real Estate in West Palm Beach, Lou Maroto and Palm Beach Personal Protection Group out of Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, where Lou takes care of personal protections, specialist issues, security work, and also concealed firearms licensing. Myself, John Riddle, with Riddle Defense out of Boca Raton, where we teach combat Krav Maga. We do firearms training for beginners, intermediate, and advanced, and also fitness training. So here we are.
We're ready.
We're ready to roll, man.
Here we go.
All right, Rick, again, welcome to the podcast. When we talk here, one of the things I like to do is get like an icebreaker going.
Yeah.
Right? So when you get up in the morning, what is the first thing you do? What does your day start out as?
Okay. After I take care of the important stuff in the bathroom, right? The first thing I do, everybody has to have a place that they're comfortable going to at their home. And if you don't, I would strongly recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's over the years, I've developed this big pavilion in my backyard out by the pool and stuff. And it's very quiet and very calm. And I go out there and I have my iPad with me and I read spiritual literature. So most of the time I read out of the Bible until something jumps out and strikes me. Sometimes if it's not that, I'll read, I have a bunch of things available to me that I can go ahead and read. And so when that jumps out at me, I think about it for a little while. So today was the thing that I read out of the entire thing. The verse that I read was humility before honor. And I thought about that for a while and what it meant, how you do that, and how I apply it in my life and how I can further apply it in my life. Mm-hmm. And then I pray, and then I'll meditate. And my meditation lasts anywhere from 5 minutes to 40 minutes, depending on how I feel. I don't force anything. Mm-hmm. And then I start my day. I go about my day. And in the beginning of this whole cycle of this virus, I segmented my day. So I would follow the exact same thing, and I segment my day from morning, afternoon, and evening. Because a lot of things were shut down at the time. And it was weird. It was an unusual time. It was odd.
Sure.
And even for the guys at work, it was weird. So segmenting it like that meant I didn't have to look at because every day was like Groundhog Day, Mm-hmm. And so being able to segment it, I could break my day up and spread it out throughout the day and make it look, or at least feel and appear as if I'm accomplishing something every day. Okay. And so my goal would be I had tasks in the morning, and my goal in the morning, humility before honor. And that on every task, that was the goal. And then the afternoon, the same thing, and then the evening. And every one of those segments had a task or a series of tasks. And I would try to apply that goal to every one of those tasks. And so every day was a new challenge.
Excellent. So that gets your head going, right?
Check.
Get you gets you in check for the day. Mm-hmm. Doing that every day, I'm sure, keeps you focused and keeps you on that straight and narrow.
Yep.
Right now, I'm sitting here looking at you, and I know you, but you're built like King Kong's little brother.
He's got all the hair though.
What's your gym training like? What's your diet like?
So my diet's really not great. It's good, but it's not great. I'm 62 years old, and I kind of give myself permission to pretty much do whatever the hell I want to do now. So I do train. I lift a lot, but I stretch far more than I ever have. So the flexibility is really important to me. And then my cardio days, which are 2 days a week, I do cardio. And typically if I'm in the gym, starts 15 minutes on a treadmill, 15 minutes on a bike. Then I do the battle rope, and I do like 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds on the battle rope, and I use a big Bosu ball. So I balance on it, and then I squat low, and I do the battle rope, and then I do one-leggeds on the Bosu ball, and try to bend over and do all this for balance. And then I go from there to the bag, and I try to get a full 5 minutes on a bag, whether it's 5 1-minute rounds or 2 2.5-minute rounds, whatever it is I'm feeling like that day. And that's my cardio for the day. I do like to paddleboard and surf and all that, but I have not been motivated to do that in quite a while. And it started with my shoulder surgery, so I've been rehabbing. So I'm actually about 6 months into feeling about 100% with my right shoulder. And you know what happened then? My left shoulder hurts.
Yeah.
It's compensating.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So, but that's kind of what I do in the gym. We ride bikes together. When I have a place up in Georgia that we get away to, and I go hiking up there. So my cardio is greater up there. But we go hiking up there. We do a lot of shooting up there. Because I got 10 acres with a national forest next to me. So I mean, I have my own shooting range there and all that.
That's
awesome.
Fantastic, man.
I just pop them. We got
A
a bunch of little 22s too, so we can just plink all day long.
A lot of deer.
Oh yeah.
A lot of bucks.
Yeah.
That's great. All right. Tell me about your firefighting career. Because, and I'm just going to jump in here for you, because, when I got out of the Air Force and wanted to become a policeman, I kind of was looking at the firefighting side too, and I noticed the lines for cops and firefighters, and they had guns and nightsticks, and on the firefighter side they had blankets and remote controls.
Big kitchens.
Here we go.
I had to go there, right?
Of course you had to. It would not be right if you didn't,
We love them all.
Yeah.
So, always with Palm Beach County Fire Rescue?
No, I worked out west for a while. I worked out in Belglade and Pahokee out there for a private company, and volunteered. And I volunteered still to this day. Well, till recently, I volunteered up in Georgia, up in Dahlonega. But before my career with the fire service, I had a great career living outside of the law, which is funny. I'm bookended by 2 police officers, and my career was I did all kinds of illegal things. I smuggled drugs into the country. We dealt drugs. We transported drugs.
Now you're retired right now, right?
I am retired.
Okay.
For the record.
From both of those. I wouldn't, and it really, the thing is that everybody comes into this from different walks of life. My good fortune, the way the Lord blessed me, was I did not have a felony. And I was not involved in anything so heinous that it couldn't be remedied. And eventually, I mentioned that I'd been sober 33 years. When I got sober, my life changed. Everything changed. when that changed, that's when I had this realization that, oh my God, I could be a fireman now. Because before, my hair was down to the middle of my back. Tell me God doesn't have a sense of humor, right? And I couldn't pass the entrance exam, which was a piss test. Now I could do both. I'd cut my hair and I could do it. And there was nothing stopping me. And I wasn't partying. What I mean by partying, there was no drugs of any type. I wasn't smoking it, snorting it, injecting it, looking at it, nothing. It wasn't going in my ear or my rear. I was been completely sober for 33 years, and my life took off, man. Doors opened, things happened, and I got hired out west by a private company first, and worked out there for about 3 years, and then I got a job with Palm Beach County, and that was shortly after they changed the rule that you had to live in the county that you worked in, and because they found it to be unconstitutional or something like that. I don't know what happened with that, but my career took off. I got involved in the fire service. I started teaching, and then the divorce came about 13 years into it, and that was the part that led to the diagnosis of PTSD. And it wasn't because the divorce was so traumatic. It was just the vehicle. It was the last straw. My cup overfloweth, man. And I thought I was doing good because I was involved in church. I've been sober. I got all these supports and all this, but it wasn't about that. It was about the way that I framed things. I had a tendency of picking up other people's traumas, other people's bad stuff, and carrying it with me. I made it mine, And then there were those times where you would be on a scene and you can't help but think about your kid, and
Right.
I didn't know how to frame that with the emotion and all that.
But when you're saying that you picked up other people's, say, baggage, how did that happen? How did that work with you?
So I watched a little girl who was, I don't know, she couldn't have been more than 6, 7 years old, wearing a cute little beige dress, dark hair, and she's standing in the driveway doing this. And I'll never forget, it's like I remembered it like right now. It's 20 some years ago. And she's waving us in because her little brother, her mother had turned her back for 2 minutes and saw him floating in the pool. And we got there and he was dead, bro. We did everything. I mean, at that point, there are those times where you will do something just to let the family know. It's all show, but there's signs that are incompatible with life. This boy is not coming back, no matter what we do. And I remember Dad walking in the room. All right, everybody just calm down, this and that. And he took one split second and he saw his son and he knew he was dead. And he's probably never seen that before, but he saw, you've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
You recognize it. When you see it, there's no denying it. And so I would bring that image with me. And when we go home, that turned into whenever we go to events. And first, my kids had to learn how to swim. That was the first thing. And then it was always, do not let them out of this house without us, and then I made sure that they all understood. And so I became like this intolerable force that they had to wear red when we would go to carnivals and circuses and stuff, because red's the quickest and most distinguishable color in a crowd. That's because the girl that was kidnapped from the Redlands down in Miami years ago is a famous case. Pit bulls on the property, 5 acres, fence, the whole 9 yards, no forced entry, nothing. She's missing, and the dogs would have destroyed anyway. So they knew it was a family member or somebody that they knew. She disappeared. We found her in our zone. She was wrapped in wire and naked.
I remember you talking about that before.
Yeah, and these are the things. So these things happen, and I get scared. I didn't know I was scared at the time. I was just being cautious.
Right.
No, I got scared, and I got scared that was going to happen to my kids. And so I have all of this stuff. And those aren't necessarily the things, but those are examples of how I had to, when I was diagnosed with PTSD, I went through exposure therapy. It was last about 8 months. So you go through everything again, and the psychologist helps reframe where you put those and the proper emotions and what your actions were, appropriate and inappropriate. And so it's actually, you have to relive this thing, and it kind of sucked, but it was very, very helpful. And that's what I mean by I would pick up this stuff. I'd pick people's traumas. Take people's emergencies and I would make them mine.
You take them home.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
causes,
Did you check the door? I told you to lock that. How many times have I told you? You put the clip on the window so nobody can slide it open.
right.
No. I got to sit there because I got to see the door. You know,
Yeah. No.
that kind of stuff.
And it ends up causing a little bit of turmoil with your significant other.
Two marriages of turmoil.
Yeah, absolutely. Because
Yeah.
we don't, well, say your era, we didn't know how to vent. We didn't have anybody to vent.
Why's it got to
Right.
be my era, bro?
Yeah, actually,
It's our era.
Yeah, our era. I probably have the same time.
And that's like we talked about last week with, on our side of the line where I got on the job in 85, 86, and it was always if something traumatic happened, we didn't have, like they're developing today, places to go to. Our place to go to was the bar,
Yeah. Sure.
and it
Sure.
would and the next day I'd wake up hungover as hell, but still in the back of your head, you still have that traumatic experience that you went through the night before. And it's almost like taking a double hit.
Marchenko, I don't know if you're familiar
Yeah.
with who he is. He used to take his guys out before the team would go out, and he would take them and go get them drunk,
Mhm.
hammered, because the truth comes out then. Now, anybody that's got an issue with somebody else, they work it out.
Mhm.
They either beat it out of each other or they talk it out, one or the other. And he knew the next day, everybody would be clear and the focus would be on the mission. So there's some psychology behind that, but it never worked for me because when I would drink or do anything, it was always like, all right, it's time to go. I'm
Yeah.
not stopping until I can't drink no more.
Yeah.
I didn't have breaks. I didn't know how people could let their beer go warm. I'd be like, man, that's a crime right there. You should not be allowed to drink. You don't know how to drink. But I mean, it works. I don't think alcohol's a culprit. I think personalities and coping is a culprit.
Sure. Yeah.
More of an escape.
Yeah, deflections like lying.
And Rick, at what point during your career or when were you diagnosed with PTSD? A reference to because of everything that you've seen.
Where are we? 13 years ago. So let's go. We're in 20. Let's go. We're back to 10. Let's call it 2007, 2008, right around there. And that's around the time of my divorce, 2006 through 2008. And the divorce, the reason that's an important landmark is because human beings are very much, we're social creatures, okay? That's why isolation works so well in prison. As a reprimand, so if somebody's acting up, you stick them in isolation. People will lose their mind in isolation.
Right.
And so because we're such social creatures, we have our work tribe, we have our family tribe, we have our social tribe, we have our church tribe, we have our school tribe. We have all these different tribes that we belong to. And during the divorce, all I had was my work tribe and my social tribe. Now, I hadn't been going to many AA meetings, so there really wasn't much of a social tribe for me. When I go to meetings now, I run across all kinds of guys. Most of them are cops, firemen, or military. I go to bottles and badges meetings, and so when the family tribe was taken from me, and I started developing these symptoms of anxiety where I couldn't keep a mask on my face, I couldn't lay down and put a sheet over my face, I couldn't lay on my stomach. I was in great shape. I weighed like 209 pounds. I was 4% body fat. I could run, I could lift, I could do all kinds of stuff. But man, the anxiety, I explain it as if somebody grabbed me by my head and was dipping me in a pool of warm water. I could feel it coming up over me. And as it got near my thorax, it felt like it was just, it was smothering me, bro, and I was smothering to death. And so when that happened, what am I going to do? Go to my engine company or go to my God, hey man, I'm struggling really bad today. I'm having anxiety attacks and I don't know what it's from. You know what? They would have laughed me out. That's my head told me. They would have laughed me out. They probably would have said, bro, man, maybe you should go talk to somebody. That's probably what they would have said. But I couldn't get past the shame and the embarrassment of being able to do that, because I always saw myself as being that guy that could handle things. If it was a tight situation, if it was ugly, I'm the guy that would get in the water off Locks Road where the alligators are, while you guys were with shotguns on the banks to keep the alligators away from us while we went into a car to check for bodies. You know, it was all those weird things. It made me so uncomfortable, but I had to challenge myself to do them, and now I couldn't do it. It's very emasculating. So that's where the suicide ideation came up. And it was not the divorce, but that was the vehicle, because now my family, the woman I thought I was going to go old and die with, and my children, who I could not protect even from their own mother. My daughter was assaulted a year before that by a teacher. And it was like, now things are really, all of those things that I tried to do before weren't working. Anyway, now I found myself being on the receiving end. That's the way I saw it.
Yeah.
And it did a number.
You know, we spoke about risk factors, right? You know, people being able to identify a person's changing behavior, character, whatever. Did anybody see that in you besides yourself?
Yeah, they did. But so we would go to training, and we'd have this elaborate training setup, right, where you're doing this search. So you got 50 pounds of gear on you. You're carrying another 25, 30 pounds of gear, right? And you're going into these small little places. You're blacked out. You got no vision. I got a problem now, remember? I can't even keep a mask on my face. So now I'm really struggling for air and all this. And eventually I just rip my mask off and I start yelling, this is bullshit, and this is stupid. There's no this. And then I'm a respected instructor across the country, and I'm having these types of, and what it was to take you away from knowing that I was having an anxiety attack and I couldn't complete the task. So I would do that to kind of deflect it, right? Everybody recognized it. You know what they do? Just don't make eye contact with him. Just leave the angry Cuban alone. He's just, and that was, but they knew something was up. My firehouse carried me for about a year. It's a good group of guys. They knew, without knowing, they knew something was up.
What was the next step?
So there's this guy comes down and he teaches a rapid intervention class, and his name's Paulie Capo, and he has since left Florida. He moved out to Colorado. He's a training chief out in somewhere out in Colorado, and he introduced me to this book by this guy I never heard of before, Lieutenant Colonel David Grossman. The book's called On Combat. So I read it, and as I'm reading it, he's talking about the brain changes that go on from PTSD and from traumatic brain injury. He's talking about video gaming and how that affects the brain changes. And he talks about this breathing exercise called diaphragmatic breathing and how it helps normalize you. And I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to try it. So I get on a treadmill at work. I got all my gear on. I got hose on over my air pack. I got tools in my hands, and I'm humming along in about 5 minutes and 30 seconds, 5 minutes 35. Man, it just comes on me so quick. I drop the tools, shrug the hose off, get off the treadmill, leave it running. I go walking around, and all I can say to myself is, don't rip your mask off, don't rip your mask off, don't rip your mask off. I went out into the bay, and I'm walking around the bay, and I'm walking in circles. I mean, I don't know what I looked like at the time, but then when I walked outside into the heat, because it was like August, right? I'm wearing all this gear, and the sun immediately feels like you walked out into a magnifying glass, and I was the ant,
right.
And that was my first rational thought was, what in the hell are you doing out here, fool? Go back inside in the air conditioning. And I walked back in the AC, but that was my first rational thought. So when the sympathetic nervous system kicks in and overloads, one of the overriding factors and one of the key things that is identifiable is the irrational thought processing. When she's telling you, I just need to go home, I just need to go home, I just need to go home, that's where she's at. That has been accessed, and that is what's currently going on. So there's a slew of hormones that are released to facilitate that, because it's the fight or flight response, fight, flight, or freeze. So I go back inside, and I'm disappointed because I didn't get the opportunity to do the breathing. I have this brilliant idea, because I'm smart like that, right? Hey, let's try it again. So I do. Put everything on. It's all right there. And I start doing it again. And I noticed around 5 minutes and 20 seconds, 5 minutes, 25 seconds, it starts to come again. I immediately step off to the sides of the treadmill and straddle it. And I start doing this breathing that he describes. And you know what? In about 5, 7 seconds, it worked. And I started giggling like a little bitch because it worked. I had a tool that could help me. And at that moment, I understood, because I had lived this way before, I recognized, oh my God, dude, that was a seriously hopeless state you were living in at the time. And that breathing actually gave me hope. That's what the giggling was about. So I had a chance. So I shamelessly stalked Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman on the internet, got his phone number, ended up talking to his accountant at his house. And this is a long story, but that's how we became acquainted. And, I'm sure he's met many, many people, but he remembers Ric Jorge. Yeah, just tell him it's the fireman from West Palm Beach. Like he's going to know who the hell I am. He loved that whole thing, but, and he introduced me to Gavin DeBecker, who in turn introduced me to Andy Walsh or Andy Morgan. And then I met Andy Walsh, and it just one thing after the other, doors just opened. And that's where the God story comes in, because those doors open for a reason. We all have a purpose.
There you go. Yeah, I believe that. Grossman's got some real good stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, I read on combat, I read on killing, and the breath control thing, the whole thing that I try to talk to people about in this gym.
When I met John, it was at a class. We were shooting. I think it was the first course
right.
one, right? And I heard his language and what he was saying. I was like, this guy knows. This, because you can't fake that. What you're talking about with the breathing and using that terminology, and if you have a working knowledge of it, it'll be apparent in somebody else that understands it.
Right.
I immediately picked up on it.
And it's good because it helped you, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But I try to explain, and I actually take my combatives guys and gals and run them through breathing techniques. When they're stressed after going through some of the episodes that we go through in here, and then out on the range, with people moving and shooting and doing different things out there with them, that breath control has to come into play.
Absolutely. That's what gets you closer to realistic training.
Absolutely.
Running, drop, burpees, whatever. Yeah, you're not going to do exercise, but it's one way to get the heart rate up, because now when you're tired, you start doing goofy things, focus and attention changes. That's where discipline really starts to take over.
Absolutely.
Yeah, agreed, man, 100%.
So with your knowledge of this and talking to Grossman, Gavin DeBecker, did that lead you into the performance training that you do?
Yeah, that opened the door for me to try to come as close to whole as I possibly could. Because I was broken, man. I would go from sadness and despair to utter joy, and there's nothing in between. My emotional swings. My sleep was screwed. I was up every morning at 3:30. I was walking the beach. I could sleep during the day, but I could not sleep at night. It was the oddest thing. And all of the other classic symptoms that come with, the post-traumatic stress. But that breathing led to one other thing, which led to another thing, which led to, so when he introduced me to Gavin DeBecker, I was introduced to Robert Martin, who I think is still his senior executive. He was at the time. And I would discuss drills with him, what my problem was, what I would try to do. And then I'd run him past Grossman and whatever. And it was always the same thing, was, what's your objective? Well, I just want to be comfortable again. I just want to do, okay, we'll break it down into breathing, start slowly, and then gradually increase the degree of difficulty. And I was like, okay, I can do that. Because my idea was, okay, learn the breathing, take a huge bite of a shit sandwich, and let's get over it, right? Because but it doesn't happen like that. It happens very, very slowly. And I started to develop those techniques. Other people that were struggling recognized it. Somebody made a recommendation it would be a good class. Here we are 12 years later, and I teach performance training around the country at fire conferences. I've worked with a couple law enforcement agencies, some military stuff. we're, we're trying to get into the corporate America side of it because that's actually where the money is. Um, and we're very reasonable, you know. It's unbelievable the amount of, as common knowledge as this may sound to some of us and some of the people in your audience, it really is not. It's frightening how many people are out there not understanding. City of Milwaukee, the perfect example. A lot of your guys are law enforcement that follow the show, right?
Yeah.
Military and stuff. Milwaukee, whose fault is that? Was that the cops or was that his leadership? Well, leadership, did they ever prepare them to let them know, hey, listen, we've been on lockdown psychologically. This is how people are going to react. So let's let certain things slide for right now because there's powder keg out there waiting to be lit. And not only that, we're going to teach you how to meditate and how to breathe because that's going to help bring your arousal levels physically, psychologically, and emotionally down and prepare you to be able to handle the big shit when it does go down, right? But no, they didn't have that. You know why? Because the city council and the mayor and all them are so busy trying to hire people in a position like police chief who ends up being a paper champion and a puppet because he can be managed by the city council rather than a guy who can do his job.
Yeah.
You know, and so now you have a perfect storm, but who gets the brunt of it?
Right.
The fucking guy in the street.
Gotcha.
You know, and that ain't right.
Yeah.
Because there's people that have brought him to that point, you know, and then they should be held just as accountable. If not, they're the ones responsible for the reactions.
Now, with the resiliency courses that you do, you said firefighters, law enforcement, some military. How does that help with everything you've spoken about so far? How does that help people who are on the fringe of talking, attempting suicide?
Okay, so suicide ideation or even attempting typically spawns from something else, whether it's traumas, whether it is a chemical imbalance, whatever it may be, it starts somewhere else. So when you find out what the etiology is, that's great because psychologically you understand it, but now physiologically, there are some things that you can do to help yourself psychologically. So the breathing works for performance and it works for the mental health side. Meditation, same thing. So meditation is utilized and it teaches you how to get your brain waves into a nice pattern between an alpha and a theta wave because the brain is its most suggestive and relaxed at that stage. And when it does that, what the meditation also does is helps reinforce focus and attention. From there, the awareness of how to change things. So recognizing what your problems are. What are your problems, your triggers, whatever you want to call them? Family members, a jerk at work, certain people while you're at work that you have to deal with, interact with, stupid people, whatever the perceived problem is, real or perceived, you identify it and then you develop a solution that will get you past that successfully and in an appropriate way. And then when you do that, you now develop a mental rehearsal for that scenario. And what's prepared you for the mental rehearsal is the breathing that allows you to slip into the mindful meditation to create the brain waves that's necessary. And you adapt that to the mental rehearsal. The mental rehearsal allows you to overcome the default that you're trying to overcome the problem. And doing that repetitively in a day, whether it's 30 seconds at a time or 30 minutes at a time, the more that you do that, you develop an increase in neuroplasticity. So the brain gets smaller and it loses plasticity as we get older. Meditation actually improves plasticity and allows it to stay plastic. And the reason it's plastic is because it absorbs, it allows to develop new neural pathways. Neural pathways is what defines new information and new learning. So we can recreate a default by utilizing these things, improving the brain physiologically and altering it, and which in turn also creates neurogenesis, which is the reproduction of brain cells, you know. And all of that stuff benefits you in the mental health side and in the performance side. In the performance side, it's to take a very intense moment in time. And those next 15 minutes are going to define how well you're going to do. You have to prepare before the storm because the storm will reveal its foundation. So you prepare for that storm and you train very specifically like that. And we're very good at that. But you can adapt the exact same methodology to the mental side. And the mental side is what actually, that's where the money shot is in what you do and in the mental health industry. That's kind of a short idea of the process.
That's that. Excuse me. That's some great information. I mean, how you explained all that. It's. I think the hardest part is like you said is taking that step.
Yeah.
Because we're all type A personalities for the most part, and seeking that help and being able to overcome those thoughts, and get yourself healthy.
You're in a good department, but even in a good department, there are certain people that you don't say certain things to.
Oh, absolutely.
Around this country and around this country,
Absolutely.
there are departments that are a whole lot worse off, where there is no leadership. It's just punitive punishment. It's like there is no forgiving. Comes with the territory. Suck it up, Sally.
Oh yeah.
Well,
That was the thinking.
That's why our suicide
sure.
rate is so freaking high.
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we real quick, we spoke about it. Like with my agency, we have a wellness officer of rank, and under that wellness officer are other representatives of him.
Peers.
So yes, so if I'm thinking of something, I'm upset, I'm having a bad day, I'm stressed out, I can reach out to say John. Hey John, listen, I'm having these personal issues, and it's all confidential. And then if they need to take it to the next level, it goes to the lieutenant. And then, so sort of resources are there nowadays, thank God. And guys can vent in discreet ways, because at one point, say like EAP, if you went to that, sometimes a lot of people knew that you were in that program, unfortunately, and things have changed.
Yeah, they have. They have to, because I think it changed with the advent of the whole HIPAA thing, which was good, because I was just going to say one of the best tips I could give anybody in the audience is go get help, whether it's through your EAP or your own insurance carrier, and you just pay the difference. But go get the help on your own, because if and when the time comes your department gets involved, you no longer have that discretionary thing. They have to report to your department now. That person has that EAP. If your department says, I'm sending you to EAP, and you go, that EAP practitioner has to report to you and to your department. So there is no discretion with regards to what they get to know and what they don't. If you go on your own, they don't have that. They don't have that. And you get the help that's necessary, and it's, I went forward at my department with it, and I told them, I said, listen, I'd like to be involved in a peer support group. And it was years before it was even ready. It was me and another guy that were on the peer support group. And it was about 20 years ago. And it went under because people really didn't understand it. But even the CISM, when they come around, and you can't force people to share their experiences and their emotions. But CISM has changed to the point now where it's like, look, this is what you can expect, Lou. So I want you to keep an eye on John. So John is the big drinker, right? And now John suddenly is not drinking anymore, and he's gotten very, very quiet, and he's the exact opposite. That's a clue. You ain't got to pass the detective's exam for that one. That's a clue, right? Or John, if Lou is this, ultra quiet guy, and now he suddenly starts acting out, that's a clue something's going on. So keep an eye on your crew and your company, and talk amongst each other, okay? Because this is the front line. It's us. This is us. So when you approach it from that perspective, you're empowering your people, but
Sure.
Definitely go for help before they tell you to go.
Yeah. And that leads me into, after I met you, and then you had reached out to me and invited me down to a place down here in South Florida called Shatterproof.
That is correct.
Can you expand on that?
Yeah.
What they're all about and what they're doing today?
So FHE Health has a program called Shatterproof, which I've been with for about 7 years. It's been there for a little over 4 years. This is actually, I think this is its 5th year coming around. And what it is, it's a uniform personnel program. So it's law enforcement, fire, military, corrections, dispatch, EMS. It doesn't matter what it is. Any uniform personnel, substance abuse or mental health goes there. They're a little disillusioned when they first get there, especially the corrections guys, because they're over there in general population for detox. They got to wear scrubs and everything. It's same thing that they do. So it's a little demoralizing to them psychologically, but we try to go over there and intercede and talk to them. Just tell them, look, it's just part of the program. You have to go through it. We have to clear you medically before we can release you to our group. So the Shatterproof program is when all the uniform personnel, they eat together, they're housed together, they go to groups together. All their time is spent together, and they're encouraged to stay together. And what we're doing, the natural leaders come out. So we tried to breed that leadership and that mentoring that goes on there by giving them specific tasks, because we have them for 8 hours of group and they're alone for 16 hours with each other. So we try to empower some of them with that. And then in the 8 hours that they're together, they go through neuro. And in neuro, they go through a biobed, which is a biofeedback. And then the neuro, they do the mind mapping. And so for people in our industry, any of these disciplines, we're very prefrontal cortex. And what happens is the brain lights up and changes physiologically. So by mapping the mind and having you do certain very small exercises, they can tell what category you fall under with regards to PTSD, traumatic brain injury, anxiety or depressive. They can tell how many concussions you've had, the toxins in the center of your brain, all of this stuff. So after having done thousands and thousands of these things, they have protocols, and that goes for the neurostim. And so the neurostim, it's very much like a smartphone or a laptop or anything. If you don't interact with it, after a while it goes to sleep. The brain is the same way. We focus on certain areas of our brain and the other parts go to sleep. So what the neurostim does is it wakes those pieces, those parts that are asleep, and recreates a balance. And what that does is it creates a better clarity and an ability to retain information too. So now you're even more teachable, right? And then we have EMDR. I forget the other one. I always butcher the name, RTC or RCT or something like that. That one's real intense. They have acupuncture and massage. They do a lot of different stuff along with the talk therapy. The ceiling is 30 people. And the reason is because at 30 people with the therapists that we have and the clinicians that we have, that's our most manageable. Give or take, 3 to 5. We're usually kept around 30 people on a ceiling there. It's a 200-bed facility, but there's 4 other programs in it.
How long is a program? Is it designed or
Right. So the length is usually dictated by insurance, which is screwed up as that is. I'm going to give the disclaimer out there. The treatment industry is either, depending on which treatment center you're dealing with, is either one step above or one step below drug dealing. Okay. That's just it's a slimy industry, man. And it is all based on money. There are a lot of people in that industry that really do good things, great things, really very, very helpful. But it's usually dictated by your insurance. If your insurance is okay with it or your department is okay with it. We've had guys there 6 months. We've had other people that have been there for 4 weeks. That was it. That was a cutoff. The insurance wouldn't pay another day. And then typically what happens if the person is really needy, the owner of this place will scholarship them, and they stay for free, bro.
wow?
Yeah, that's a different animal. And that's the beauty about this program. Whatever he can do to separate it. So we have a dive class. Everything is on hold because of this. John is one of the guys so we'll bring law enforcement officers in here and put them in scenarios to see how they react. And if they trigger, then we know that what we've been doing with them hasn't been enough. So now we need to start looking at, okay, where did we go wrong? How can we fix this reaction, right? Whereas, and if they're not, and John can coach them, and we'll have somebody else, myself or somebody else will be here to coach them through the sticking points, right? We do that with a dive class too, so that when they dive in shallow water, it's in a pool, and they practice breathing and they meditate underwater and stuff. So everything goes to the focus and attention.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, it's a hands-on training is what it is for the mental side, so it's yeah, I wish I could answer that better about the time, because you and I both know people really don't show their ass till about 90 days, so they can run a game on you while you're there, and
I'm okay. I feel better. I
Yeah.
want to get out.
I'm good. Yeah, and they go home and they're right back into what they were doing before. Most of the problem with people like us, our disciplines, is not at work. That happens, but that's not the typical. The typical is when you're off duty, when you have no structure.
Right.
That's when the wheels fall off right there. Well, I'm off duty. I deserve it. I'm gonna drink until I go back to duty. And it's just a destructive pattern.
That's so true, because it's, we're built on structure,
Yeah,
from, and all the groups that you guys take care of, fire, law enforcement, dispatch, military, everything, everybody is on a structured program when they enter into that business.
Yep.
And yeah, and then once you step away after your 8 or 12 hours, is freedom. And then
What do you do?
Right.
yeah,
What do they say? Idle hands.
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the cool part is all of them being together is because it doesn't matter what discipline it is. You're all walking the same stuff. There's different, responsibilities, but you're in the same environment.
They're all
man.
first responders.
Yeah.
In one
it's
way,
all-
shape, or form.
Yeah. And there's a comfort in that, and there's a comfort in being broken. And you're with a bunch of people who are broken. You're like, oh man, I thought I was the only one. I thought this was weird. You'll sit in a group and you'll be like, man, they ain't getting shit out of me. I ain't saying nothing because I know there's a setup. They're going to tell my boss. And then you'll hear some guy drop something. You'll go, holy shit, are you kidding me? And I can't even believe he said that. And before long, you're pouring your heart out, because you have that safety, that comfort. You give yourself permission to actually be human and let it out.
And in that short period of time that I was with you, I was down there twice with you in your classes, and I saw it, and you can see it when you walk in. People, I'm the new guy.
Sizing you up.
I'm sitting there in the chair, right?
Yeah.
And I'm with him,
Who's this guy?
but they don't know me,
They don't.
and they're looking at me and they're like, who's this guy, right? I remember when I first got up,
Yeah.
you introduced me, and I got up and I talked about myself, and everybody was like just staring at me beforehand, and then afterwards, guys and gals were coming up to me and talking to me, shaking my hand.
They know you're
saying,
one of
hey,
them.
Hey, it was very interesting to see that turnaround. Now,
How many times, real quick,
Hmm?
how many times you get on the job, you get somebody from CISM or something like that, ain't got nothing to do with the job. They're going to come in and tell you how to feel. They're going to do a debrief. Really? Get the hell out of here. What is this, sensitivity training? Let the door hit you where the dog should have bit you. What were you saying, John?
so if I'm an officer, firefighter, whoever in the uniform business, and I'm in maybe Portland, I'm in Miami, up in Maine, or I'm in San Diego, and anywhere in between, and I need this help, how can I get to you?
My email address is surfdogs4@yahoo.com. That's surfdogs, which is plural, SURFDOGS, followed by the number 4@yahoo.com. And if it's like really important, you want to call, give me a shout at 561-239-1908.
Okay, and how can these same people or family members of these people find out about Shatterproof?
It's actually on the internet under FHE Health, and then it's a program. So FHE Health is the name of the business, and then the program is called Shatterproof. You can go on the internet, Google FHE Health, and then once you find FHE Health's website, you go right to follow their buttons. And I think it's towards the bottom of the page. They change the page sometimes, and I think it says first responder program. And you click on that, or for first responders, you click on that, and it'll come up Shatterproof. It'll give you info and contact. And if you don't have the internet, or you're not internet or technology, your technology compromised, you can call me. I can go ahead and text you the direct contact info to either Jeff or Craig, which are two of the main guys that I like to refer people to. And they'll help you with, whatever gets done in there.
Outstanding.
I'm curious.
Yes.
Have you seen a spike in first responders seeking help compared to, say, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, what, the time that you've been doing it?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's because this thing that we like to throw around, stigma, I think it's finally gotten to the point where guys understand, when you see, this has been video. So when people see this video and see three guys like us talking about this, they're like, okay, maybe it's okay to say something, because it's just three alpha personalities, and we may be short, but we ain't little,
Mm-hmm.
and the bottom line is that we work in this industry,
Sure.
and so it's almost as if subconsciously they get permission because they don't want to look like that weak person, and weakness associated is what, like effeminate, so
Right.
it's, yeah. I have seen not necessarily a spike, but an increase of people that are willing to come out and get help. And there's been an acknowledgement by industries too. So like the IAFF has come out with the Center for Excellence up in DC, which is the International Association of Firefighters, our big local. And so they're actually coming out in front of it, and departments are coming out with their own wellness and their own peer supports. And so I think that opens the door to allow people to come forward and say, yeah, man, I need some help. I got to get right, man.
Absolutely.
I think it's a blessing.
And I think with the way all the shit that's happening today, probably 6 months, maybe a year, you may see a spike.
Yeah. Shit, I wish I was still on the job sometimes right now.
I think that too.
God. Most guys are like, well, why would you want to be a cop or a fireman or anything right now? I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Now's the time to be one, bro.
Yeah.
This is
it. I mean, it's the story about the two cops in LA.
Yeah.
I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
And then the presence of mind to be able to do what they did. I mean, that just,
that was,
that doesn't get your blood pumping. Then you know what? Maybe you're in this career track just for the bennies. Maybe you don't belong,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the kind of stuff that should really like really focus you.
and we see that. I mean, I'm sure you see that in
Mhm.
the fire service. We see it in the police service too, that we've got people in there that really aren't there for what we're there for, right? They're there for all the side benefits. All right. Well, you got anything else, bud?
No,
right. Rick, thanks, bro.
My pleasure.
Great
Thank you
seeing you, man.
Thank you very
for
much
coming
for
on.
Thank you, brother.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna sign it off.
Absolutely.
All right, man.
Thank you.